Okay, so up on the super rugged north shore of Minnesota, there's this waterfall, and it's been stumping people for like over 100 years. Get this, half of a huge, powerful river just dives into a hole in the ground, and poof, it's gone. For decades, nobody had a clue where it went.
So that's the big question, right? Where does all that water go? I mean, this single question has led to some wild theories. We're talking bottomless pits, secret tunnels all the way to Canada, even portals to another dimension. But the real answer? Well, it's been hiding in plain sight this whole time, and it's this amazing story of science going head-to-head with folklore.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story starts in Judge C.R. Magny State Park. This is home to the Brule River. And after a pretty tough hike, you're rewarded with this incredible view. The river hits this massive, ancient chunk of rock and just splits. It's like you're watching the setup for one of nature's greatest magic tricks.
So the setup here is just fascinating. On one side, the east side, it's a totally normal waterfall. Water goes over the edge, splashes down below. No big deal. But then you look at the west side, and that's where the mystery really kicks in. The water takes a nosedive into this deep churning pothole called the Devil's Kettle, and then it's just gone. You can't see where it goes.
You can imagine, right? This vanishing act, it fueled decades of speculation. When there's no clear answer, people's imaginations run wild, and they came up with some really compelling theories. So let's take a look at the two main suspects in the case of the missing river.
Okay, so the two most popular ideas were these. First, maybe the water flows into a huge hidden cave system and pops out somewhere way out in Lake Superior. Or second, maybe it found an ancient lava tube, a hollow tunnel left over from when the area was volcanic. And honestly, both of those sound kind of plausible. That is, until you actually look at the rock.
So why don't these theories hold water? Pun intended. Well, first, for caves to form, you need rock that can dissolve, like limestone. But the rock here, it's called rhyolite, and it's incredibly hard. Water just can't dissolve it. Okay, so what about lava tubes? Well, those form on a specific type of volcano, a sloping shield volcano. The North Shore was formed by flat flood basalts, totally different geology. So from a scientific standpoint, both of these popular theories were a total dead end.
But the fact that the geology didn't add up, that didn't stop people from trying to prove the theories right. For years, people threw pretty much everything you can think of into the kettle, just hoping to see where it would pop out. And every field experiment just made the legend even bigger.
And this is where the mystery gets really good. I mean, people drop blogs, dyes, even GPS trackers into that thing, and nothing ever came out in the river below. But the most famous experiment, they dropped hundreds of ping pong balls in there. You know how buoyant those are, right? They should pop right up. But not a single one was ever found. It was like definitive proof of the impossible. That water and everything in it was just going somewhere else.
Okay, so this is where the story takes a turn, shifting away from legend and straight into science. In 2016, a team of hydrologists with the Minnesota DNR decided to try something new. They said, forget about the ping pong balls and logs for a second. Let's focus on the one thing we can measure with total precision, the water itself.
And to do that, they used a basic scientific principle called volumetric mass balance. Now that sounds complicated, but it's actually super simple. It just means that the amount of water going into a system has to equal the amount of water coming out of it. So think about it. If half the river really was disappearing down some secret hole, then the amount of water below the falls should be roughly half of what it is above the falls. Makes sense, right?
So, they got out their stream gauging equipment and took their first measurement. They went a few hundred feet upstream from the falls, before the river even splits. And the number they got, 123 cubic feet per second. Okay, lock that number in your brain, 123.
Then, they packed up their gear and moved it to a spot a few hundred feet downstream from the waterfall. Now, this was the moment of truth. They were measuring the river after the Devil's Kettle, where all that water was supposedly vanishing, and the volume they measured there was 121 cubic feet per second.
So let's put those two numbers side by side. You've got 123 CFS coming in and 121 CFS going out. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, 2 cubic feet of water is missing? But here's the thing. In the world of hydrology, that small a difference is totally normal. It's well within the margin of error for these kinds of measurements. The big takeaway here is that those numbers are, for all intents and purposes, identical. No water is being lost, which can only mean one thing. The water going into the kettle has to be coming back out almost immediately, right there in the main river.
But wait, that just creates a whole new puzzle, doesn't it? If the water just pops right back out, then what in the world happened to all those logs and dyes, and especially those ping pong balls?
Why did nothing ever seem to resurface? Well, the answer isn't in where the water goes, but in the incredible, raw power of the water itself. Professor Calvin Alexander, one of the scientists on the study, came up with the absolute perfect analogy for this. He said, the devil's kettle isn't a drain pipe, it's a giant blender. And once you start thinking about it that way, everything clicks into place.
So imagine you toss something into the kettle. It isn't just gently flowing away somewhere. No way. It's immediately trapped in this system of insane hydraulic pressure and violent swirling currents. It's getting smashed against that super hard rhyolite rock over and over again. It's being torn apart by the turbulence, held underwater by the force of the flow. A log? It would be torn to shreds. A ping pong ball would be absolutely pulverized into tiny bits of plastic long before it ever had a chance to resurface.
So, there you have it. The science is settled. The water goes in, gets thrown into a natural blender, and comes right back out, just a few feet downstream. Case closed, right? Well, not exactly. It turns out the legend of the Devil's Kettle is almost as tough as the rock it's carved from. You see, the researchers had actually planned to do one final dye test in 2017, to give everyone that visual aha moment of seeing the colored water come back out. But they ended up canceling it. Why? Well, for one, the science was already solid, the water measurements were definitive proof. But there's another reason too. The park staff kind of realized that the mystery is a huge part of what makes the place so special. It's a major attraction. Sometimes not having all the answers is what keeps us coming back.
And that leaves us with these two realities existing at the same time. For a lot of the public, without that big Scooby-Doo reveal of the dye, the mystery is still alive. But for the scientific community, the numbers don't lie. The case was closed with a simple, elegant proof that what goes in must come out.
So that is the incredible story of the Devil's Kettle. It's a geological wonder that turned into a legendary mystery, which was then solved by some really elegant science. But it does leave us with one final question to chew on. Even when we have the scientific answer, is a good mystery sometimes just more powerful and maybe even more important than its solution?